everyone, good afternoon and a very warm welcome to Thorough Newspaper Analysis. Today is 19th of May and this entire video series is brought to you by LawSikho. Now let's head to the agenda for today. So first we have an Indian Express article which is titled as Supreme Court Upholds Jallikattu Law, What is this Decade-Old Practice? See here, as the title itself suggests, we talk about the Supreme Court's recent development or recent judgment whereby the Supreme Court has upheld an amendment that was brought about by 3 states in the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act of 1960. We also talk about the Supreme Court's 2014 judgment and what these amendments essentially were. Secondly, we look into the news update segment, and thirdly, we will have a look at the important legal developments of the day. So with this, let's start with the article for today. See, this is going to be our order of understanding of it. First, we talk about the issue at hand. Here we discuss what the Supreme Court has held, although very briefly. Then we talk about what this practice of Jallikattu essentially is. And thirdly, we look at how the case has reached the Honorable Apex Court. Fourthly, we understand what the amendment was of 2017, which was brought about by the state of Tamil Nadu. Then we have a look at the amendments in the state of Karnataka and Maharashtra. And lastly, we talk about what the Supreme Court has essentially held. So see, recently, a 5-judge bench, which is a constitution bench of the Honorable Apex Court, it has upheld the amendments that were made by Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra and Karnataka to the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act of 1960. This has essentially allowed bull taming sports like Jallikattu, Kambala and other bullock cart races. So while the bench, which was led by Justice K.M. Joseph, it ruled that the 2017 amendment, these three states which brought this amendment, these amendments, they were valid legislation. It said that the Jallikattu issue, it was indeed a debatable one, and therefore it must ultimately be decided by the House of the People, which is the Lok Sabha. Making this decision requires social and cultural analysis in great detail, and such an exercise, it cannot be undertaken by the judiciary. This is what the Honorable Bench stated. So see, essentially, Jallikattu, it is a bull taming sport which is traditionally played in the state of Tamil Nadu, and this is a part of the Pongal festival, the harvesting season that occurs in the state, and it is a part of the festival celebration. Now, the story as to how this matter reached the Honorable Apex Court, it dates back to 2014, and we look at 3 developments which happened in 2014, then 2016, and then of course the 2017 development. So see, in 2014, a division bench of the Honorable Apex Court, it outlawed 2 sports which are common in the state of Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra, which is called, of course, Jallikattu and the bullock cart race, respectively. Now, the division bench, it ruled that these sports, they were against the provisions of the Act of 1960. And if I were to point out the specific provisions, these would be Section 3 and Section 11, subsection 1, Clause A and Clause M of this Act. As far as Section 3 and these sections are concerned, they provide for duties of persons who have the charge of animals and define animal cruelty, respectively. Now, thereafter, in 2017, there was this notification which was issued by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Essentially, this notification, it prohibited exhibition or training of bulls as performing animals. However, interestingly, this notification had an exception, and it stated that Jallikattu in the state of Tamil Nadu, it is going to be an exception. Why? Because it is based on customs and culture of different communities. So essentially, the 2014 judgment, if I were to put it in a very layman sort of language, it was pro animal rights. And then we have the 2016 notification. By virtue of that exception, it was sort of against the animal rights. And then as a result, it was this matter reached the court. So 2 years later, a batch of petitions, they were filed challenging this exemption, and the petitioners, they relied on the 2014 ruling of the Honorable Apex Court itself. Now see, the next year, which is in the year 2017, in Tamil Nadu, there was this development which happened. So Tamil Nadu, it amended the the Act of 1960, and it allowed Jallikattu in the state. The amending act, it sought to preserve the cultural heritage of the state and to ensure the survival and the well-being of the native breeds of bulls. Now, while the initial petitions in the Supreme Court, they had sought a direction to all the states to comply with the 2014 judgment. However, by virtue of the enactment of this amendment, these petitions, they were modified, and they now also had this prayer, which is they sought quashing of the 2017 amendment. Now let's understand as to what the other states they did. See, in following the development which came from the state of Tamil Nadu, Karnataka in January of 2017, it decided to amend the Act of 1960 to pave the way for Kambala, which is essentially a sport wherein there is a pair of buffaloes. Now they are tied to a plow and they're anchored by one person, and then they are made to run in parallel muddy tracks. So this is a race, and the state legislation which was brought by the state of Karnataka, it allowed this practice. Now, acting on a PIL which was filed by PETA, the Karnataka High Court, it then passed an interim order, and by virtue of that interim order, the Karnataka High Court, it banned the practice of this race. And thereafter, there is the development that comes from the state of Maharashtra. So Maharashtra, in July of that year, it also amended the 1960 Act by allowing bullock cart races with a view to follow tradition and culture on such days. However, the same year, again, similarly, what happened in Karnataka, it got repeated in Maharashtra also. So the Bombay High Court passed an interim order, and it stayed this practice or this act of allowing the bullock cart races. And therefore, now let's understand what the Supreme Court has held now. So see, in this judgment, the top court, it has held that the Tamil Nadu Amendment Act, it is not a piece of colorable legislation. What colorable legislation essentially means is that whatever you cannot do directly, you do it indirectly. So whenever the legislator cannot do something directly, then they put the form of the law in such a manner that it does not highlight something which cannot be done. However, the intent of the law and the provision in its entirety, they seeks to achieve something else. So the court said that this is not a colorable legislation, and also that this amendment, it relates to one of the entries in the concurrent list, which is entry number 17, and it therefore is an entry in the concurrent list which provides for the matter of cruelty to animals. So the court held that once it's implemented, this amendment along with the rules, and it is read with the rules, then the sports, it will not come under the definition of the cruelty which is defined in the 1960 Act. The court also said that the 2017 amendment, it does not violate the provisions of the Indian Constitution. Now, what are these provisions? Section 51, capital A, clause G and clause H, which imposes duty on the Indian citizens to protect the environment and develop a scientific temper, humanism, spirit of inquiry, and reform, respectively. Further, the bench also held that the amendment, it did not violate the fundamental rights enshrined in Article 14 and Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. So with this, we dive into the next segment for today. And now we proceed to the national news segment for today. So first, we have an update with respect to program Pahal, online education program Pahal for rural children. See, this program, it was developed through a partnership between the Department of Secondary Education and IIT Kanpur. It aims to provide education to rural communities through online platforms. In the initial phase of this program, 10 government secondary schools in the state of UP, they're going to offer free online education as part of the initiative. And in the near future, this service is going to be extended to 40,000 schools across the state. India hosts SG9 meeting to advance standards for television technology. The Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and the Telecommunication Engineering Center of the Department of Telecommunications, they're organizing the meeting of ITUT Study Group 9 on broadband cable and television audiovisual content transmission and integrated broadband cable networks at the campus of the institute. The SG9, it looks at various aspects of transmission, distribution, and rendering of cable and broadband television. Moving on to another update in the segment of sports category. So India ends Sudirman Cup campaign with 4-1 win over Australia. As far as this campaign is concerned, this cup, it pertains to international mixed badminton tournament. India's campaign, it ended on a winning note after the team beat Australia by a 4-1 in their final group match. With this victory, the Indian team finished third in the Group C. India had earlier lost to Chinese Taipei and Malaysia, and it failed to make it to the quarter-finals. PV Sindhu, Shrikant, and the pair of Chirag Shetty and Satvik Sairaj Ranki Reddy, they were tested for the tie. The centre has appointed bureaucrat and an expert in the gas sector, Anil Kumar Jain, as the new chairman of the Oil and Gas Regulatory Body, which is Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board. Jain, he had previously retired as the Coal Secretary in October of last year, and he is an IAS officer of the 1986 batch. His appointment, it was approved by the Appointments Committee of the Cabinet. Gujarat Corps of the Indian Army, it conducted a joint flood relief exercise by the name of Jal Rahat. This was done on Manas River in Assam to validate the joint drills and coordination preparedness by multiple agency flood relief columns. Apart from the Indian Army, SSB, the National Disaster Response Force, the State Disaster Response Force, the District Disaster Management Authority, and the police representatives, they also took part. The event, it included coordination and rehearsals for rescue missions of people from inundated areas by joint efforts of specialist team from the Army, the NDRF, and the SDRF. Moving on, Meghalaya has the highest number of schools and teachers as far as Northeast India is concerned. So Meghalaya, it boasts a remarkable achievement in the education sector with an impressive number of schools and teachers. The Chief Minister of the state, Conrad K. Sangma, he revealed that the state is home to nearly 14,000 schools and it employs over 55,000 teachers, which surpasses other small states in the Northeast India. And this has brought us to the international segment for today. So Kami Rita Sherpa, he has become the first person to scale Mount Everest for 27th time. He sets a new world record. He's 53-year-old and he scaled the Mount Everest for the very first time in 1994. And since then, he's climbing the Mount Everest almost every year, barring these 3 years, which is 2014, 2015, and 2020. When climbing, it was halted for various reasons. The International Museums Day, it is observed every year on 18th of May, which is yesterday. This day, it was celebrated for the very first time 40 years ago. As far as the theme for this year is concerned is museums, sustainability and well-being. And this is the utility of this observation of this day. See, all around the world, more and more museums, they participate in International Museums Day. Last year, nearly 37,000 museums participated in the events in about 150 countries and territories. And this has brought us to the last segment for today, which is the segment of legal updates. First, we have an update with respect to the Jallikattu case. So the Supreme Court has refused to extend fundamental rights to the animals. The top court, it has upheld the validity of Jallikattu and other bullock cart races in the country. While doing so, the Supreme Court has also observed that there is no precedent to show that the Constitution of India recognizes fundamental rights for animals. The Apex Court also observed that the 2014 judgment that banned Jallikattu in the case of Animal Welfare Board of India versus N. Nagaraj and others, it also did not recognize animals to have fundamental rights. And with this, we move to another Supreme Court decision. So the Supreme Court has quashed a criminal case against the President and the Vice President of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Bangalore. This was lodged by ISKCON, Kolkata. In the present case, the court noted or opined that the inordinate delay of around 8 long years in filing the complaint in the court, it itself would be a sufficient ground for quashing the proceedings. The name of this particular case is Chanchalpati Das versus State of West Bengal and Madhu Pandit Das versus State of West Bengal. And with this, we've come to an end for the TNA for today. In case you want to get access to the free study material that LawSikho curates or the TNA slides that were used in this video, I would highly encourage all of you to use our Telegram channel for the same. And in order to join the same, you may click on the description link or you may scan the barcode here. These are the point of contacts in case you want to get in touch with LawSikho. Thank you for being with us.